Have you ever walked into a crowded room and felt or thought, no one would notice if I just slipped out now and just pretend I never came? Maybe it's a party, or maybe it's just a situation where there's a lot of people that you don't know, or it's an uncomfortable situation and you just think, you know, you know, even if I went there, are people there who I don't really know that much anyway, and they wouldn't notice or they wouldn't miss if I didn't come. They wouldn't miss me. People don't notice. Um, Today I need to dig into the power of your presence and just simply the act of being somewhere, being with, around a person or being in a place, and just like how much more powerful that is than I think we like to acknowledge. And just kind of going into kind of just what is inherent worth, like worthiness as like a human. And the reason I this is coming in for me strongly today, I think, is some of my own personal blocks that I'm working through. One of which is I haven't posted on here in a minute, and so I'll explain kind of how that came to be a little bit just to give an update, but as well as working with people and just different people in my life. I feel like I've witnessed more recently in the past month or two where people can really easily talk themselves out of their worthiness, talk themselves down like so easily. Um, and also as a perspective from someone who, for me, I have clients and I treat people and I talk with families. And from that perspective, being in a provider role of working with people, whatever that looks like, a caregiver role, um, providing some kind of service to people in like a coaching or a client situation, um, it can sometimes feel that, what is the impact, right? Like, what impact does this have, right? I'm sure we all have those thoughts or those days or those feelings. Um, and I'm just so grateful. Like, things have been reflected back to me recently of just showing me um, just reminders of the impact of my work and the impact of literally like just being there as me, like not even like my skills, the strategies, like, well, yes, like those can be helpful. Like, I feel like there has been a lot more moments recently where I've just noticed and acknowledged how literally just being there and just being me helps. And I kind of want to touch on as well, even literally, I like started this video a few times because the concept of visibility and authenticity and, oh, just be yourself, I feel like it's been talked about so much that it can start to lose meaning. So I literally was even like, like, how do I talk about this without, saying, the authenticity and stuff where, again, I feel like just in the rhetoric that we see this online so much, it starts to lose meaning sometimes. Like, what is authentic and how far is too far of just being yourself? Sometimes we use that, or people use that as an excuse to do things that hurt others or say things that hurt others. And like, well, I'm just being myself, right? But that's not really what I'm talking about today, and I don't think that's what gives that the topic of like what does true authenticity and that kind of look like. So anyway, the power of presence and showing up. I first want to just acknowledge that I have not been posting in a minute. It's been maybe a month or so now. So I initially got sick for a week plus, where I was pretty much down for the count. And I've been experiencing a lot of seasonal allergies this year where it's just really had me coughing a lot and just different things with my voice where, recording videos. I remember I recorded a video a little earlier this month and just never finished it because it was like just coughing all the time. And I'm like, I'm gonna rest a little bit more and try to figure out the what's gonna help with my voice with seasonal allergies and stuff like that. So my when I was sick, it kind of affected my voice, and then I've just been battling with this like cough off and on, and then like I lost my voice at one point, and this spring has been crazy. So yeah, so that was the start of it. But then I definitely like my voice has been okay for a while. So um for me, and this I know is like it's a pattern I recognize in myself. And I'm sure, a lot of people can relate to this, but um, like the consistency or, showing up consistently for me is a block. It's like it's so interesting because like I am good at like I am responsible and I can be consistent and all of those things. But I think it's when it is something that is just for me, like I'm not, you know, this isn't like a boss is telling me to do this or anything like that. But not just that, it's more of, it's something a bit more personal and it is something just more creative. Um, Sometimes I kind of keep myself from even getting into a creative zone to get in the zone to do this or to do like whatever creative project that I want to try to do. So it's just so interesting. I definitely self-sabotage and I'm sure we all do this for different things in our life. And so honestly, like me even just making these videos is a part of helping myself break through that. And I do hope that it does inspire other people as well of just doing the thing of just trying to work through what it is that might be holding us back or patterns that we notice are keeping us from living life fully. And for me, it becomes so much of a kind of a block that it then I'm like not enjoying, other things or whatever. Like I know that like deep down, like this is something I want to do. And so when you're not doing it, it's like it's still there. And so I'm really grateful like to be here. Like I just had I didn't really have a plan of today's the day where I'm gonna restart videos. Um, I'm grateful and I'm gonna acknowledge myself. And you're welcome to join in acknowledging yourself for something that you did today. But I'm just acknowledging that I kind of listened to that intuition. I could have pushed that off again today, which I've done plenty of times. But I recognize like I feel the creative flow starting. I feel like the desire to really go do that. Like let me take advantage of that. And it did take me a minute because I'm a little bit rusty of like, wait, let me set this up and test things out, make sure I have like storage on my phone, like all of the things. And sometimes, the logistics can kind of push you out of the creative mindset. But today I worked through that. I did the thing and and I feel great doing this. So just a reminder of just getting through those first steps. Like really I feel like a lot of like procrastination or things that we put off or blocks that we have, a lot of it can be conquered in just starting, truly like the beginning of just getting into something. Like once you get past that hurdle, I feel like things can naturally just flow and happen. So I'm grateful that I'm doing that. But yeah, so I've been not posting for a while, was sick. Now I'm better and I'm getting back into it. I've also had like a transition in my schedule, which sometimes throws me off as far as I kind of went through a period of just literally, again, just kind of pushing everything off and just not doing anything. And which, days of doing, less things or, can be helpful and recuperate and revive you. But for me, it was definitely more of like it was helpful for a little bit, but then it was me just procrastinating things. So, but also it's like I'm acknowledging that and working through it and I'm coming back. And honestly, that's not the longest time I've procrastinated something. So I give myself credit for um, kind of building that back up and kind of building myself back up into a new schedule. So, all that being said, our presence is so important, and it's so ironic too. And yeah, I just think it's the perfect topic for this first video of me coming back and kind of breaking through some of that, working through that actively. Um, so people notice you more than you realize in a good way. Like, not sure there's people out there that are mean, like whatever, but there's a lot of people who notice your kindness, who notice um, your compassion, who notice you. They notice your presence, and it does make a difference. And I can say that because I've definitely felt um, in the past, there's been plenty of moments where I felt like not perceived by anyone. I'm a very quiet person in general, especially around new people or in a new environment. I can literally walk down a hallway and I have a story where I feel like my presence is just so naturally unintrusive for some reason. Like everyone has kind of their own presence, I guess, or like aura or however you want to kind of label it. And some people it's like you cannot miss them coming into a room. Whereas I have so many stories of literally like coming into a room and I like accidentally scare people because I was so quiet. And I don't, it's even sometimes when I am actively trying to be louder, like I will try to like make like loud footsteps or at least like kind of to me I feel like I'm stomping essentially to make some kind of noise so I'm not sneaking up on someone if their back is turned to the door, and I will still like jump scare people by accident. Like that is just my natural state of being. And there was one time when I was maybe in high school and I remember I was like shopping at like a shoe section in a store. And, so there was like a center aisle going down all of these rows of shoes and then a bunch of other aisles coming across the other way. And I was going down this center aisle and like someone came and like almost ran into me in the one aisle. Like we did the whole, oh, sorry, whatever, didn't hear you. That's okay. And then literally like the next aisle or two aisles up, like someone from the other direction from another aisle came and almost ran into me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I just almost ran into her too. She was so quiet." And I'm like, "I'm just existing." Like I'm not trying to um like sneak up on people or, be that um like I get like kind of what's the word? Like not observable. I don't know. But so I might have, maybe more experience in this, or, this is kind of just a part of my life experience versus, someone who is more naturally just seen in a room, right? And there's nothing bad about that. Like I feel like in society as well, we can um put value on like one versus the other. And I just truly think everyone has their own um excuse me, like phlegm still happening a little bit, but everyone has their own like strengths, right? Everyone has their own strengths and everything. One isn't better than the other. Like we all have our own life experiences to bring to the table, like our own way of living to live out here. And so, one isn't better than the other. But um for me, just kind of naturally being that type of person, um, I've had so many moments of like just feeling not seen. And I'm like that's just such an inherent human desire, I think, to be seen, to be understood. Um, and it's something like I've had to kind of accept and kind of get used to and um see as a superpower in some ways of, I my kind of more quiet demeanor can bring so much to the table in so many capacities. And truly just seeing that as my strength and as an asset has really kind of changed the game for me for even being able to share like what my strengths are and what I bring to the table, like for a job or within jobs or things that I already have going on, like um using that and just acknowledging that as an asset has been really helpful, for just like knowing like okay, even if I don't know 100% what I'm going to do with this client today, um like I have an idea, but you never really know until you get there. You don't know, what that person's mood is like, what they need. Like you have to kind of meet them where they're at, right? So you can have a plan, but then you have to adjust it. And just me like noticing and acknowledging that, me just being there as my calm, like my naturally calm, quiet, like observant self is sometimes, a lot of times, like all that you need. Um, at least initially. Like obviously, bringing in my other skill sets and like knowledge and all of that is helpful, but really like just your presence a lot of times is the majority of what you need to be in that room, to bring to the table, to have a connection with someone. And I feel like um for me recently as well, I'm working on like different job applications and um things like that. And I've also like a lot of people kind of around me are making some like career changes or trying to make a career change. And so, just kind of witnessing some of those shifts happening right now. Um, it's just like you can get into this whirlwind of feeling like, you need to have like so many skills and that you're listing out and all of this experience. And again, that has its time and place. And that is important in its own way. But truly, like finding like the people and the spaces that just allow you to show up as you is like the most important thing to me. Um, and I feel like we can easily lose the fact that just being ourselves brings so many skills to the table already. Um, yeah, again, like even if you are like, let's take the opposite of like kind of my demeanor. If someone is like always noticed when they come into a room, they just have like a big presence. Maybe they're a big, like a physically big person, so it's just a lot harder to like miss them, right? So, that inherently can bring a lot to the table of, people automatically notice you, right? So that in itself is helpful to maybe lead a team or um like be like to teach people, right? If like they're already kind of going to be watching you, right? If that's your natural way of coming into a room. Um and yeah, so it's just, and on the other side too, it's like, me like my more quiet, side of things, I feel like I can really relate to people maybe one on one and things like that, maybe easier than someone who comes in a bit more loudly or just again has a bigger presence. So it just, um, we all have our strengths, and I just wanted to kind of reflect on truly like the importance of presence. And you can show up. Um, and it's okay if you don't, if you don't show up to the party because you're really not feeling like it. But I hope that, you know, when you're feeling better or when you um are, that you do actively work through that at some point. Like me, for me, like sometimes I just have to, recognize like, okay, I am putting this off and you know what, today is the day I'm still going to put it off. Like, and I'm not going to judge myself for that. And when I come back in, like that is like I acknowledge that. I acknowledge, what it took me to do that, to come back and kind of lock back into something. And honestly, I think um it would go a lot easier if like, life allowed for a little bit more of that. Obviously, it's definitely important to be consistent and to consistently show up to things. But we also do need that space to sometimes not have our A game or not have like the best day ever, right? And to take that step back, uh, and to not judge ourselves for it, and to be able to do that. I will say I'm coming from, you know, I'm in America, and so a lot of times, we just barely get time off, or you can theoretically have time off, but then like never be allowed to actually take it. Some of my, people closest to me are dealing with that. And so, it can be a lot. So then, kind of my last point here that I wanted to share too with that is like, I feel like part of my kind of block sometimes of like, oh, like you need to be consistent is because it's come up in the negative light of that throughout my life sometimes, of like, if you're not consistent or if you don't show up like every single day, you're a failure, right? Or you're not committed enough, or you don't care enough, like all of that kind of rhetoric. But that couldn't be furthest from the truth. And so I do think, part of it just comes from some of that rhetoric that we get um, taught to us in certain environments. But yeah, so this is just me showing up and reminding you, even if you take a step away, even if today's the day that, what, you're giving into your procrastination, like every minute is a new minute, every day is a new day. You don't have to make a huge announcement to come back online, literally or figuratively. You can just kind of ride the waves. You can decide to come back. You can decide, um, when it's time to, when you want to just take a step back. And ultimately, like our presence does matter, like so much more than you realize. And I'll end to here with just sharing some examples of the things that have been reflected back to me, because even if you are not having people say these things to you, um, a lot of times it's happening even if we're not getting that feedback. But I've just heard, that just in a few times with like meeting with this family that, they've seen an improvement with their son. And I'm just like, that's amazing that, you know, I can sit here and be like, well, I barely got through any strategies or any, things like that. Like in my, the logical mind, it can be like, I barely did anything, right? But I know that my presence and just being a listener, truly just listening well, and being there and caring, um, like that can go so far. And so like that's just something that was reflected back to me recently. Let me think of one more example. Oh, I had another example. Let me just wait. Let me see if it'll come back to me. Um, but oh yeah, so another person I've worked with in the past, like they shared that like working with me kind of it gave them more than more than the strategies basically, right? Like, so, I'm there to give strategies to help to, kind of give accountability, um, encourage, support, like all of those things. But they, just shared and reflected that, I gave them even more than I could probably realize, right? And that, like, let's just take a minute and realize how big that is because I feel like, at least for me too, like those comments and compliments, like I appreciate them, but I don't allow them to really like sink in and like be as big as they really are. And again, like for every person that's like giving you something that's like reflecting something like that back to you, there's way more people I think that probably aren't that are being positively impacted by you that aren't actively telling you that. And so, if you're ever wondering, you know, does my presence matter? I'm just here to remind you that it does. And yeah, and thank you for being here and listening all the way through here if you're still here, because it's been healing and helpful for me as well. And so let's just keep lifting each other up, and we do matter. Your presence matters. And yeah, I'm excited. Until next time.